Persistent present determinism versus the classical deterministic frameworks that involve things like block universe and timelines, okay? So let's get into the difference, and this is important to understand existential logicism, okay? And also the resolution state interface, which I'll be dropping more and more on, all right? But let's get into it. First, let's start with conceptual versus real things, okay? We'll start with infinity. Infinity is a conceptual idea. An example of that would be is you can know there's always a higher number that comes after the next number. But because you are finite and all measurement is finite, that creates an infinity. Because we know that there's no end, but we have no way of actually knowing that for sure. Maybe there isn't like a certain number of particles in the entire universe. That would be the limit of number. They wouldn't be infinite. But it's a conceptual way to describe a thing that we can't physically do or describe, okay? And so it's important to remember that, all right? And so time is the same way. Because we're social creatures and we develop society around time, and we'll get into all this more as we go along, but this is just like a rundown. We shape society around these objective phenomena like the day-night cycle, okay? So we feel like time is an objective thing itself, like a real thing, an actual dimension, not just something we use to describe the real world as a rate of change. But people think time is like a fundamental force in nature, the thing that is the time, or that objects are moving through, okay? That's not what existential logicism and persistent present determinism says, okay? There can be no objective time, all right? Oh, I'm sorry. Time. Let's talk about numbers. This is an example I've used before. I'm going to use similar examples across videos to try to get points home for people, okay? So, let's talk about numbers again. Numbers, we can apply infinity to because of what I just talked about. I'm sorry, I got to hit the AC, y'all. Sorry if it's loud. But we can apply numbers because of what infinity to numbers, but not the numbers themselves, to the system, okay? So no number is infinite, okay? But you could say numbers are infinite because we have an inability to make that finite measurement, so we can't have an objective truth. 2 + 2 = 4 is objective to us because all of our experience tells us that that is a fact that comports to reality. Anybody who could be considered rational recognizes that as a fact, and so we all agree that that's an objective fact. But that doesn't make the number a fact. The same way situating societies around the day-night cycle doesn't make time a fact, okay? Every measurement of time just comes down to arbitrarily assigning some type. And so even if you use something like the decay rate of an element that you can reliably count on to happen at a consistent rate, the problem is if you believe the gravitational fields affect time, then what you have is no objective standard to base time on, because everywhere in the universe would be just overlaid with an almost infinite number of gravitational fields, okay? That's what the resolution state interface shows, is that we can actually calculate those overlapping fields, but that's for a different video. I'm going to try to keep this to classical physics and not bring the resolution state interface in too much, because I don't want to get lost in the weeds on that, all right? So if you're wondering why I'm using a lot of classical physics terms because you're familiar with the other side of my work, that's why. I just want to make this as accessible to as many people as possible, because I think this is really important. Anyway, my little diatribe is over. Let's go. So because of that, there can be no objective time, okay? A seemingly infinite number of fields are overlapping, like I said. We arrange subjective time around events, confusing the time itself for the event, for the objective event it's describing. Okay, that's what we were just talking about. we mistake the day-night cycle for something that actually relates to your life. That's when your boss tells you you need to get up. Do your atoms care? Is 30 years the same for one person as another person? It's like a very general time frame, but it doesn't actually mean anything specific, okay? The days in a year, the years in a lifetime, like what matters is the experiences, and that's what you're going to learn the deeper you get into existential logicism. Now, let's see. Confusing time itself, describing. Time arranges societies, not particles, okay? It's a measurement of a rate of change, and that's what we need to remember. It's an overlay for reality. And the quicker you can understand that what we're doing as experiential beings is overlaying frameworks on reality and interpreting it at all times, then you can gain a deeper understanding. Okay? My daughter said to look at the camera more. I'm trying. It's not working out. Anyways, society's not particles. Infinity describes systems, not numbers. Okay, that's what we were talking about earlier. So you can have a universe. Sorry, let me grab an eraser here. You can have the universe itself, and you either exist, no exist. Everything that exists. That would be the cosmos. It doesn't matter what shape it is, if it looks like a fucking dog ear or whatever, or a Mobius fucking bottle or whatever the hell you think is going on, or a Klein bottle or a Mobius strip. It doesn't matter, okay? Because infinity is the thing we use to describe something that's beyond our measurement, which is all of existence. If you're not in existence, you don't exist, okay? That's how it is. So what we say is existence is infinite, but any state of the universe is not. You see, the universe is changing. We're changing states in the universe. 3, 4. That's what we're saying. Things that exist, and things that don't. The universe, the structure of the universe may be infinite. Infinite here meaning beyond our ability to comprehend. Not magical, okay? Not fucking some fucking time warp force beyond our fucking who knows what's beyond our comprehension. But the idea is the universe at any given state isn't infinite because it changes, okay? Now, it's a conceptual artifact of a finite existence. That's the point I was making. Time arranges. Oh, I'm sorry. We can count forever. Existence. We can't count forever. Okay, that's what I was saying earlier. Nothing itself is ontologically parasitic. Nothing can only exist if there's something to be missing. Okay, you can't have just like nothing isn't a place. It's not a thing. I'm getting mosquitoes in here. Okay, so just bear with me. But nothing isn't a place. It can only exist within another thing. Nothing is the absence of a thing you expect to be there. Nothing is a conceptual thing, not a place or a state. Okay? Even when we die, we don't become nothing. Everything that makes you up becomes something. And we're not going to get into what you're all made of, but the atoms in your body become something else. And if there's energy running through you, then that energy is essentially assimilated in some way. Okay? Now, we can't count forever, nothing on. It's purely conceptual, an absence of a thing laid on reality, like infinity. So those are the same types of concepts. We have to understand this, okay? We lay it on as if it was an objective physical fact, and that's what leads to paradox. No, ma'am. No. Sorry. No, ma'am. You're going to get mosquitoes in. Go. Okay. Sorry, the dogs are trying to let all the bugs in the neighborhood in here. So it leads to paradox because you can't overlay conceptual things on the reality and expect there not to be some breakdown eventually, because it's not reality itself. And just like another quick example would be something like the ship of Theseus. is it seems like, oh, it's a paradox. If you're not familiar, the idea is, I mean, you could use any example you want. The ship of Theseus is, what makes it the ship of Theseus, essentially? If you replace a part, is it still the ship? And if you replace another one, is it? And at what point does it become a new thing? That is just a breakdown in understanding, because what you have to do is define what you mean by Theseus's ship, and the more clear your description is, the more clear the answer can be. So we have to stop making vague general statements like reality is infinite, and then taking that as some definitive truth. Okay, that's my point. So when you say, when does it become the ship of Theseus, and when does it become something else? When does it become something else? What I say is, well, define exactly what you mean by ship of Theseus, and I'll tell you when it changes. Okay? Now, let's move on. Sorry if I'm getting hyped up. This one, like I said, is near and dear to me. The universe is deterministic and causal. Okay? As experiencing beings, we record past events and predict future events based on causal awareness and memory. That's what makes us special. We're aware of the causal chain and deterministic nature of reality. At least some of us. As experiencing beings, we predict future events based on causal awareness and memory. Let's think about books. Books record the past, okay? That's a timeline in a book. But that entire timeline exists in the present, and if it doesn't exist in the present, then it doesn't exist anymore. Okay? And once it doesn't exist, it has no way to come back. Because there has to be a mover to move you to come back. And if you're in non-existence or nothing, then there would be nothing there to move you back into existence. Okay? Existence can't touch nothing, because if it touches nothing, nothing is something now. Alright? You have to understand the difference between conceptual and objective things. Okay? So we covered books. Books seem like a timeline. Your memory, same thing. Seems like a timeline. It feels like, oh, yesterday was then, today is now, tomorrow is the future. No. The present. What made up yesterday became today. Okay, you didn't move on and there's an infinite number of yous going that way and an infinite number going that way. No, today is today. The present is the present. What made up the past is making up the present now, because the past became the present, and the future is a purely theoretical thing, and we'll explain why that's the case even under Laplacian or classical Newtonian determinism. Okay, we'll get to that, so hold your horses. Anyways, and the other example, like we went over, is planning around day and night cycles. We mistake this for a fundamental nature of reality, a timeline, a flowing river, an arrow of direction, all experienced prediction lenses. We see things that way because we use past events, which exist in the present in our mind. They don't exist anymore, okay? They're just in our minds. We use that recorded past to predict theoretical futures. That's why we as experiencing beings, it's like we can't not see shit as a timeline. Even as I'm describing a new physics system that doesn't use time as a mover, or a fundamental dimension, or a fourth dimension, don't even get me started on string theory and all that shit. But even as I'm doing that, I understand that reality doesn't give a fuck about my timeline, but the fundamental interactions are still happening, and me as an experiencing being, that's what makes me special, is my ability to be aware of all of this. That's what's so crazy, is we're aware of it, but we have to understand that we're putting a lens. We're always overlaying our lens of objective reality. We're never actually really there. Okay? Now, your reality is to experience things and predict outcomes. Then react. We experience will. Okay? That's why we experience will. Is because of that past, present, future mindset. We experience, like, everything is determined. You are a determined wave. Okay? You're like a point and you're interacting with the larger wave, but your decisions are rising from the inner wave, okay? So even though everything that makes you up is 1,000 or 1,000,000 deterministic factors, and you're interacting with the world of determining factors, because you are the point within the larger system, like all your factors come to an internal point that interacts with the outside world, that's your experience of will. So in existential logicism, we say there is no free will, but you experience will. And that will is real. It's not fatalist, okay? There's no laid out timeline in front of you, and we'll cover why that's not the case. We have to get this rudimentary understanding of determinism out of our heads, okay? We have to understand the universe as the thing that's always happening right now. And I think you guys are gonna like where this goes, okay? But experience to predict outcomes, then react. That's why we experience will. It's that pressure that builds from past events that presses us to think, oh, in the future I'm going to do this thing. Okay? But that's also the way we get out of responsibility. Because we say, oh, there's a future me, and that me will do the thing. No. If you want to be a weightlifter, guess what? Go start picking up shit. Are you a big, strong guy today? No. But are you a weightlifter? Yes. You're already that person today. Okay? You haven't reached your ultimate fundamental goal, but every moment you're not doing that thing that you want to be, you're not that person. Okay? That's the lens you got to view it from. There's no future you who's going to save the you from yourself. You got to save yourself today, right now. Okay? Or just make peace with the fact of who you are. You have to find happiness by either making that decision that I'm going to start affecting this deterministic wave from inside, and then that'll allow me to have some amount of influence on the external deterministic wave, or just accept that you're a go with the flow kind of person. That's all right, but you don't want to make yourself unhappy by constantly mentally pursuing goals that you really don't want to do. Anyways, let's move on. So we experience will as a byproduct of awareness of causality. You are a wave of determining factors. Your will is one of the factors, those still determined. The things you want are determined, but you experience wanting them. That's your will. You want an outcome. You have a record of the past. You want an outcome because of all of these determining pressures, and that is your will. That is your duty. That is your fear. Okay? That is your emotions. All right? You are a wave of determining factors. Your will is one of the factors, those still determined. The things you want are determined, but you experience wanting them, that's your will. I'm sorry for repeating. That's your will, duty, and so on. You can't magically change the deterministic chain with free choice. That's where the trolley problem is. It's a silly thing. It's the trolley situation in existential logicism, meaning a situation we have a moral obligation to try to avoid. If you believe rational beings carry moral pressure, then we have an objective, we have a duty to prevent things that objectively harm experiencing beings. Okay, that's where me and Sam Harris agreed. You can measure harm because harm itself is just a word to describe a thing that experiencing beings don't like. Okay? Now, and so remember that your will is not free. You were made of determining factors interacting within a determining wave. That's why your choices feel like yours, because they arise from you and interact with an outside world. Okay? But your will, though not free, you still experience it. It's a real thing that you feel because you have the past predicting the future. Okay? It's crazy, all right? And the more intelligent you are, then the more you can. That's what the spectrum of consciousness is saying, is that intelligence doesn't mean you get access to a set of emotions that are all better than the next intelligent being. It says experience happens on a spectrum. Intelligence is on a spectrum, and consciousness is on a spectrum. So when a pig is screaming because it's scared, it's the same thing as a human screaming because it's scared. We can just list more reasons, but we're both accessing this we're using the word primitive because, for lack of a better word here, maybe but these primitive experiences, okay? Like that's what the spectrum is saying, is that because of your intelligence, you have more memory, more experiences, more predictive capabilities, more things you think you want to happen or you think will happen, like that pressure that you feel to want a thing. And because of that, it feels bigger and better, but at the end of the day, we're experiencing these same like primitive experiences that are immediately recognizable across all experiencing beings, just in differing degrees, okay, in differing depth. But the question spectrum of consciousness is asking is, does depth mean more important, or is all we're really doing is viewing the world through a human like a human centric subjective standpoint? Like, is a dog's love just as meaningful as a human's, even though it's not as complicated because they're not intelligent? Like, when they love with all their heart, is that just as good as a human? That's the question we want to ask, because that's what I believe, and why I wrote Existential Logicism, is I think asking those questions builds that kind of pressure, and that ultimately leads us to treat humans better, okay? So whatever your goal is, whether treating animals better, humans better, same. Because we're all experiencing being, there's no cutoff trait, and because there's no cutoff, how we treat things badly, like if we can just treat factory farming like, oh, it's okay, it doesn't matter, then we can feel the same way about people in the Middle East or in war zones anywhere in the world. You get what I'm saying? The indifference makes us indifferent to types of suffering, and we can just accept it now. Anyways, that's enough about experience. But experience is important when understanding persistent present determinism, because we got to understand our lens that we're viewing the world from is flawed, even though it's something that's so inherent to our being, okay? Now, so you can't magically change the determined chain, but you can affect enough determining factors. Meaning sometimes you can, like, you are a determining factor yourself. All that pressure builds up to lead you to do things that makes you a determining factor. So you can change things, but most things are tied down in some inextricable sense to hundreds or thousands of other decisions in the past, okay? But as an emergent determining factor in the chain, you can build waves that can move larger systems within yourself and then the outside world around you. Everything, each state is finite. Okay, I'm sorry, that goes with this. Okay, that's like we were saying earlier. Each stage is finite, not infinite. Anyway, now let's talk about classical determinism like we did earlier. You have timelines. Existential Logicism says no. We have block universe where the past and the present and the future is laid out. Existential Logicism says no, because that kills free will. But we don't care. I'm sorry, that kills free will and will at all. Where's my napkin? We don't believe in free will. That kills will, okay? Free will doesn't matter, because all that matters is we experience will. It doesn't matter if it's free. Do you feel like you want to do a thing? That's your will. It doesn't fucking matter if it's free. It's real, okay? Existential Logicism doesn't believe in explaining your experiences away. It believes in explaining your experiences, okay? So this is simple determinism, okay? And that's people's problem, is then the like Laplacian and Newtonian determinism. If we knew every particle, position, and direction, we could know a perfect past and future prediction. This assumes time's laid out in a line, leads to infinity's direction. Persistent present determinism says the universe is resolving into itself. This implies future already exists. Laplace's demon. Just no. Existential Logicism says no, and I'm about to show you why. Collapses under quantum uncertainty. Okay? Existential Logicism also understands quantum uncertainty as a useful descriptive thing, but also not real. It's conceptual. It's our inability to measure things, okay? Everything is resolving. Now, then we come back over here. So, people don't have a problem with this. I'm going to make a noise. I just predicted the future. I'm going to do it again. Okay? I'm predicting the future. You don't have a problem with that. People have a problem with the fact that if we have perfect knowledge, then we can know the future already, and that means there's no free will. That's not how any of this works, though. Okay? That's a simplistic view of determinism that doesn't understand the fundamental structure of reality. Okay? If we knew all the positions and all the atoms in the universe, that eliminates free will, or will at all, because we know the future. It means we're just doing what's going to happen. We're just doing what's already going to happen, but both are false. Knowing every atom and direction could still only make future predictions, and predictions can never be 100%. You could know everything right now, but you can't know the outcome of every single interaction. Not because it's not calculable, but because you can calculate the odds on a dice, but until you roll that dice, you cannot know what's going to happen. That's the problem with the simplistic view of determinism. You cannot know the future because it's right now, okay? So we make predictions based on right now. Until it's the present, we can't know what happens. So we can't accurately predict 3 from 1 until 2 is already the present and we can confirm. Because we know things will interact, but we don't know with absolute certainty what will happen, okay? And you never can. That's what quantum uncertainty is getting at, is this idea, okay? But what I'm saying is quantum uncertainty is a property of our inability to measure, because there's a limit going forward, and that limit is the present, okay? We can only, if we had perfect knowledge of the present moment, you still wouldn't have perfect knowledge of every interaction that would take place, let alone the trends that would emerge, because there's emergent properties also, okay? And the idea is not we can't know the emergent properties because they're too complicated. The idea is the properties don't emerge until the present moment, okay? That's the thing. And so you can make as accurate as predictions as you can up to the present moment, and that's really where absolute knowledge will always, always, always stop. Meaning the future's not laid out until the present moment plays out. That means your will is real, because you're feeling it and it's playing out in real time before your very eyes. It's not already happened. It's not already laid out. You can't know what's going to happen. You can be pretty sure, but guess what? Variety is the spice of life, and we watch sporting events and things like that and root for underdogs because we know that just because something's probable doesn't make it 100%. And a prediction never can be, okay? In existential logicism, there's no block, there's no chain, there's existence. There's 1 turning into 2, turning into 3, you understand? Turning into 4. Any state of the universe is not infinite. The system we describe as infinite because of our inability to measure it forever, okay? So, you can never be 100% on predictions, and you can't know until the present if it's true. You can know every particle in a probable and theoretical, wait. So basically, if we could do the impossible thing of having perfect knowledge, like this is a purely theoretical problem anyways. This is, again, we're laying something conceptual over reality and going, well, if this conceptual thing is true and it's absolute reality, then that means nothing I do matters. Yeah, no shit. You're laying over a conceptual thing over reality. That's not how reality works. So this is saying, even if we could have the computing power to know the position of every single atom in the universe, which we can't do and never will be able to do, we still couldn't predict a perfect future because you can't know what's going to happen until it happens. Theoretically, though, you could have perfect knowledge of the past. If you knew every position of every atom, but see, even there, you would only be seeing the back-end trends. Like, at some point, knowledge gets lost in resolution, okay? But it's more theoretically possible you could have perfect knowledge of the past and a perfect history, and it's not even theoretically possible that you could know the eternal future and that it's already laid out, because that would mean that there are no probabilities and there is no chance. That's not how shit works. Okay? Now, that's a myopic view of determinism. The one thing becomes the next and the old thing still exists. No, that's your experience. What is now is becoming the next moment as we speak. I just poked myself in the nose. Okay. Now, free will cannot, with or without knowledge, free will cannot exist with or without perfect knowledge. Okay, that's what I was saying. It doesn't, like the idea here is, the problem is, if everything's already laid out, then there's no free will. There's no free will. I'm sorry. Things are either random or they're determined, and neither one of those things are free. Okay? You experience will. That will's not free. That doesn't have anything to do with fucking whether determinism is in a chain or a block or it's already laid out or whatever. Like, it all just points to you don't have free will. Which is okay, because you're an experiencing being, and will is what you experience, and your experience is what matters, because that's all that you have. Okay? Now, this side of the board is going to be a lot quicker, just so you know. This side was going to be a lot of explaining, so we're getting there, alright? Now, free will not exist. Your causal predictive experience is what you feel as will. A series of waves come to a point and interact with the larger wave. So the universe is determined and also can't be known until it happens. Experience equals determining factors. Think particles moving in a room. You can know one-to-one interactions, but at some point you get enough particles that knowing one-to-one interactions doesn't tell you anything about the system itself anymore, because the system's going to be based on massive trends, not single interactions. And that's true for thoughts and consciousness, and that's true for particle physics. Okay? That's what emergent means. Emergent is not magical. It's not ether, and it's not soul. It just means our ability to know one-to-one interactions fails, and things become about trends and waves, not because of magic or new properties, or maybe you could say new properties, but not because of new like fundamental forces being introduced. It's just an emergent property of what was already there. Okay, we're not saying a new thing comes into the system once you have an emergent property. The emergent property is already there. That's the idea. It's emerging. So you could almost say the next moment of the universe is the emergent property of the current moment. We're not moving in a chain. We're resolving into the next most stable state at any given present moment. Okay, and that's and the whole idea here is, because time is an overlay, the present is all that we can actually ever know, because everything else is past or future, and we've discussed why that's not necessarily reality. Universe is recursively unfolding, meaning the past moment is recursively and deterministically unfolding, meaning the past moment is becoming the current moment. The next present moment is coming from and out of the determining factors of the previous present moment. Okay, it's not flowing. Each state is determined by the next. Now, we covered Laplacian already. Let's talk about causal determinism. Every event is caused by another event. Yes, but each event plays out in the present. It's not a timeline. See, this is the baggage that old deterministic viewpoints carry. This is what allows like theological people in debates to like kind of hamstring an atheist person. Okay? It's because they bring up questions of, oh, well, if we can know everything. Yeah, you predict the future every day. Wake up. You're already predicting the future. Is that a problem? So yeah, the more knowledge, the more accurate prediction. It's not that difficult. But that doesn't mean there's no limit, because you're mixing up conceptual things with real things. Causal determinism doesn't clarify time. It's too general. It allows for misinterpretation and confusion. Persistent present determinism gives a clear picture of time. It's always now. Everything else is a effect of our causal awareness. All right. Theological determinism. God knows or ordains all future events. Free will is illusory or controlled. If free will was accounted for in the plan, then it's still not free. That would be fatalism. Collapse is moral agency because everything's already made up. Like fatalism is a bad one. You don't want to fall into fatalism, okay? That collapses moral agency. Replaces determinism with metaphysics. Okay, we have a real thing that you can get so close to it you can taste it. But we're just going to abandon all that for metaphysics. Metaphysics. No thank you. I don't think so. I need a drink pretty bad. Now, it builds circular logic. God knew what you would do. You understand what I'm saying? Metaphysical overlay on real physical events defeats usefulness. It's circular and non-logical, okay? If you want to believe in God, that's fine. But God has to come after the things we know. Remember, God goes in the gaps. That's where he goes, into the gaps. Once we know how the sun works, you don't need God. Once we know how things work, you don't need God, okay? God's the thing beyond us. Here's Existential Logicism's actual take on God, okay? Consciousness is an emergent property of sufficiently sophisticated enough systems. There's no reason to think that the universe can't at some point reach a level of complexity that could emerge a type of consciousness, whether it would be something we recognize or don't. But that would be so far beyond us that it would be effectively the same as living within an unconscious substrate. You get what I'm saying? That's as clear as I can make it. It's not an interesting question. It's a fun one to do metaphysics if that's what you're doing. Existential logicism isn't doing metaphysics, it's doing reality. So this is a fun question, and this is one you might want to ask to help you sleep at night, but you have to do reality first, metaphysics second, okay? And determinism is so strong, we need to just put all this other bullshit right behind it once we can fully understand determinism. Logical determinism, bivalence. Positions are already true or false. This would be like block universe. Everything already exists. Fatalism. We discussed why that's not good. Persistent present determinism. No prediction can be 100% until the present moment. You can know the odds of the dice. You can know the exact position of the dice. But the fact is, at some point, that dice is going to be on an edge that is 50-50, and you can't know what 50-50 comes out until that 50-50 happens. That's the point. It's not even about a lack of knowledge. It's about events cannot happen and trends cannot unfold until those events happen. You get what I'm saying? That's the persistent present determinism. It's disconnected from the logical structure of reality. Logical determinism is not so logical. Compatibilism. Free will is real, even if determined, as long as you aren't coerced. No, this is not a logically coherent view. Will is real. Yes, will is real. Not free will. Okay? We experience will, even if we experience it, even if it's determined, as long as you aren't coerced. Existential logicism says you are coerced. Everything you do is being coerced by nature, by nurture. You are literally coerced. That's why the argument that objective morality exists and it's an imposition of will doesn't work. It's because every single thing you do from the time you're first slapped on your butt as a baby is coerced by nature and nurture. Okay? So, but persistent present determinism effectively gets rid of compatibilism. It doesn't matter. It does the same thing it does to theological determinism and makes it a mute question. It doesn't matter. Or a moot question. And it doesn't explain the fundamental experience of will. Okay? It redefines determinism in a useless, contradictory way. It doesn't explain will, which existential logicism puts at the pinnacle of how we can know anything. That's the epistemic refutation paradox. Everything you know comes through your experience. Okay? And that's why it goes beyond I think, therefore I am. Because I think is assuming a being of some kind, an I. No, the experience is the fundamental thing, not the I. All right, and see the epistemic refutation paradox video. It's just titled Epistemic Refutation Paradox, Existential Logicism, okay? And that's on this channel. Quantum indeterminism. Events are probabilistic. No cause equals random. Existential logicism says this is a conceptual overlay that's useful to understand the real fact that I described about persistent present determinism. That you can know the position and direction of every particle, but eventually things come down to 50-50 chances, and you can't know what happens until they happen, because they can't happen until they happen. It's not that you lack the knowledge, it's that certain things will necessarily have to play out for predictions to happen, and those things will add up and will destroy your predictions. Okay, so there's no fatalism in existential logicism. It replaces determinism with mystery. Existential logicism doesn't believe in mystery. It believes we lack the ability to measure everything in an absolute objective sense. So we use things like quantum indeterminism, quantum probabilities to describe the fact that we can't know, like it's just like what I was saying. But imagine speeding the world up so much on the quantum level that you do have all these predictive events, but you still can't know anything past that moment. You can only make probabilistic predictions, and you can only certainly know what it's doing at that exact moment. Welcome to persistent present determinism. We say it's not mystery. We say it's our inability to objectively measure things because we're subjective experiential beings. And the more we understand that, the more we can push forward in these incremental ways. Okay? We are almost there. Goodness gracious. Can't scale to usefulness in the real world because all this probabilistic crap doesn't really help you in the daily world. Things do come down to actual choices that get made. Events do play out, and that's the world we live in. And it also doesn't ground moral or logical weight. We've already discussed. Our experience is a byproduct of determinism. Our consciousness is a byproduct of determinism. Moral weight is a byproduct of the pressure that builds from deterministic moral forces. Persistent present determinism has an answer for morality. And we're finally here. Persistent present determinism. Causal structure, predictability, consequence, but removes metaphysical baggage of timelines, omniscience, block universe, and fatalism. The universe is not laid out. It unfolds into itself. It resolves to its next most stable state. The future can't be truly known until it's the present. You, the aware agent experiencing the causal chain, you are the aware agent experiencing the causal chain. That truth shapes you, and in turn you shape it. What shape do you want? You can start working now. You can be who you want to be right now. You just can't be the finished product until you've put many right nows in a row, okay? Or just ride the wave. Just ride it. Ride the wave. Every experiencing being can't just be going crazy. Everybody doesn't just want things like crazy. I think it's better for you to have goals, but if you don't, then stop making yourself unhappy by wanting things you're never going to do. Just understand what's going on, what it would take to make certain changes, and whether you really want those or not, and then become happy with either the action you're taking or that you're not taking. That's the idea. It's about accountability and understanding reality. Okay? And so that's it. As far as the determined recursive resolution state interface, which is my physics model, that's the new name. It's been upgraded from UEFT, which was kind of a day one placeholder. And the symbolism in UEFT, I had to use legacy symbolism, which carried legacy baggage, to try to describe a thing that was happening that I was seeing in my mind. And it was useful for people who were coming at it from a conceptual first standpoint. But I've rewritten the whole thing with new novel symbology that explicitly describes the interactions that are happening within each equation. And I'm going to be dropping the first equation, which is the resolution state law. Okay, it's the equation the speed of light and big G gravity fall out of when you use it in their respective domains. Okay, so that's an exciting one, and that's the first of 4 equations which build the backbone. So in the coming weeks, in the next month, I'll try to have all 4 of those equations completely hammered out. But I think I got the first one in a good enough rough form to put it out. And anybody who understood UEFT, this is going to be like a holy shit. Like, this is going to make it clear for everybody else what's going on, I think. And again, this isn't just something I pulled out of my rear end. This is essentially a discovery and a project I'm working on in real time and giving people access to, because I don't really have help around me. Okay, so remember that it's not in its finished form until it's in its finished form. But I do want to keep people in the loop and give access, and like, I'm not hiding anything on any of this shit. Like, I'm building things from the ground up, block by block, brick by brick, and it's been a painstaking process. I have so much gratitude for the people who have supported me, left comments, left likes, and especially the people who said they can relate. Being a logical person can be a lonely world sometimes, and so it's good to connect with other people who have this deterministic logic first type of thinking, and also understand you can find real meaning within that. And so that's all I want to say. I'll be posting more and more videos the more comfortable I get doing all of this. Let me do this real quick, just in case anybody's actually curious about the book. My book's on Amazon for $5, the Kindle version, and $9.99 for the paperback. I think the Kindle version I make the most on. I think I make $3 on that one. I think I make $1 on the paperback and 3 cents on the hardcover. So, like, I'm not trying to sell you a book to make money. I think you might find this useful, okay? And I let that dry out. Existential Logicism. Existential Logicism. Okay? These are on Amazon. And then UEFT, which was the Unified Equilibrium Field Theory, is now, what I'm releasing now is going to end up being called the Deterministic Recursive Resolution State Interface, or you might hear me say resolution state interface. Okay, this is a unified theory